Welcome to my channel. Please enjoy the video. What is going on, my tea sippers? So I wanted to talk to you guys about a specific story out of Chicago, Illinois. Have a look at this young child right here. Her name is Yasmin Acree, and she was just 15 years old when she was taken from her home on Chicago's Westside in the Austin neighborhood. However, guys, there is a lot of elements around this story, and if you pay attention to it, you can kind of piece it together and have a full detail on what might have happened. Now, Yasmin's auntie adopted her because something happened with her sister back in Kentucky, whereas the children were removed from her, and it was just her and her brother. They were removed from the sister, so her aunt, Mrs. Rose Starnes, decided to adopt so they wouldn't have to go into the system and be in foster care, okay, with people and family that they didn't know. So they brought Yasmin and her brother back to Chicago to live with the family members, and then after that they went on to adopt her and her brother. So they said that Yasmin was a good student. She was good. She was in 8th grade at the time, and then her grades began to slip. And after her grades began to start slipping, they asked her brother to leave the home for some reason. So after they asked the brother to leave home, they put this baby in the basement and made her a bedroom in the basement, and it isolated her from the rest of the family. Guys, I don't want to jump around, but I'm going to state what I'm going to state, okay? So there's been a lot of information out there, and it was once stated that Yasmin, this young lady that you see right here, it was being told by other family members that she was touching on the younger children. And so when she started and began to do that, Rose Starnes, her aunt, because yeah, she adopted her and it was her adopted mother, but this is her mother's sister. She put the baby in the basement, honey, and had her down there when she began to touch on the kids. And said, oh, she's touching on the kids again. And this is how the aunt would punish her. Now, guys, I'm not going to water this story down because this information is out there, okay? And it has been for decades. It has been 14 to 15 years since this baby has been missing from Chicago Westside, and the police department made it a cold case, and they're no longer looking for this child. But I wanted to bring the information to you guys, and I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to water down my tea. I'm going to give it to y'all how it is, and I'm going to tell y'all the truth of what I think and what happened and what was going on and what was said. That's the problem with Black folks. We don't want to accept the truth and take things for what it is. When you accept the truth, you find truth, okay? Let's continue. So, Yasmin was being sexually molested and assaulted, okay? And the family knew who it was, but they didn't want to say who the person's name was. So it seems like they are protecting a predator, okay? And I would say, I'm not going to call out any names or say who I think it was. However, I'm just giving you guys what went on from the beginning on up until it got to this particular guy. Yasmin was being sexually assaulted, but the family was very unwilling to name that abuser. Okay? So who don't name the abuser, and why put her in the basement if she's repeating this behavior to the children? Rose Starnes, we know she's not here. It killed her, guys. Rest in peace, Rose Starnes. But it killed her. The guilt ate this lady up, guys. Okay? And from the word on the curb, the brother and the aunt, when she adopted them, this lady had brand new furniture in her living room. You know how they have that old furniture, but it's new furniture, and they put the plastic on it like that old antique furniture. She would not allow the children to be anywhere in her living room. She was not very kind to her niece or the brother. And like I told you guys, I want you to remember that the brother was asked to leave the home shortly after coming with his sister, and they both were adopted and living with their aunt, Mrs. Rose Starnes, for some particular reason. When Yasmin's grades started to drop, the aunt asked the brother to leave the home. And after that, Rose decided to put her adopted daughter in the basement. But anyway, guys, so when this came out that she was being abused sexually, the family never named that abuser's name. So I would take it upon myself to assume that it was a family member. That's just my opinion, guys. Because it seems that Rose Starnes is no longer here, so she took that to her grave. Okay, and whoever the perpetrator is, I doubt if he is going to come out and say, oh, it was me, okay? So Yasmin's mother was having a tough time. I even heard that she passed away, okay? And so, that's how the sister ended up getting her children, okay? But it seems, especially in the Black community and in Black families, that protecting molesters is common, especially when it's a family member, guys. And this is why I assume that this is a family member, because they don't want to give a name out. And not only that, they never talked about any criminal charges, okay? Okay, so I have a gut feeling that it was a family member, okay? And not only just a family member, it could have been several family members that it started out with. So to give a little bit more backstory, so Rose Starnes was the type of woman, she liked to gamble. She liked to go on the boat on the weekends, and then she started going on weekdays. So she went with her little boyfriend and they were gambling, and she liked to spend her money and she liked to go out. Yasmin, however, was to stay in the basement. There were certain places in the house that she could not go. And when she began to touch on those children, allegedly like they stated, she was punished and she had to stay in that basement, okay? And it was a basement, guys. I don't even think the basement was a finished basement. For those of you who live in Chicago and y'all know how the houses is out west, y'all know what I'm talking about, okay? So when this baby went missing, it seems that all of a sudden Rose Starnes stopped being the type of person that she was before all this happened. They say she went into a very deep depression. She was constantly worrying. She started losing sleep and struggling with anxiety until it caused her health to decline rapidly. And shortly after this, after all the time has went past, when she turned 57, she died in her home in Oak Park. So she moved from the Westside to Oak Park. And her cousins said they found her in the apartment dead. And so her cousin, okay, Reverend Year-old Acree, this is also a family member, but he's a reverend, okay? So they said she died of natural causes and it was related to her health problems. And her family said included that she had diabetes and kidney failure. Starnes' relatives and Westside community activists mourned her death. They also used the occasion to call attention to the disappearance of Yasmin, okay? And I don't know why they keep saying that she adopted her, but this was her biological auntie, okay? Why couldn't they just say that she was in care of her aunt? Why did they have to keep making it perfectly clear that she's her adopted mother? You and her mother were sisters, Rose. That was not even important to keep saying that, guys. I'm just giving y'all how I feel. When I start to do a video, I do a video from my heart. If it touches me, I'm going to do the commentary on it because I'm from Chicago and I've heard a lot of things about this family and about the family dynamic and about Rose Starnes and about how she treated those two children when she first got custody of them. And it was not pretty for them to be her biological blood nieces and nephews, her sister's children, okay? So let me give you guys a further backstory with the timeline. Yasmin spent several years in Kentucky foster care system. She was sexually abused and she developed very severe and emotional behavioral problems. So in 2001, Yasmin and her brother went to live with Rose Starnes, okay? And then later she adopted them in 2006. Starnes stated that she loved Yasmin, but she had trouble dealing with her behavior problems, and occasionally she disciplined her by whipping her with a belt and locking her in that basement. Like I told y'all, she put her in that basement and made a room for her there. And that's abuse itself, in my opinion. So after adopting them in 2006, 2007 came. And this is when Yasmin's brother, he was 16 years old. So this was her oldest brother. He was the oldest. For some particular reason, Rose asked him to get out of her house. So after she asked the brother once again, y'all, to leave the house, never stated why, but she started telling all these things about Yasmin's behavioral problem and how she had trouble dealing with her and problems dealing with her by whipping her with the belt and locking her in the basement. But you said you put the brother out, honey, and you didn't even explain that. You just touched and gold on that. You didn't even get into why you asked this young man to leave your home after you took the responsibility to adopt him and his sister. So you put him out so he can go out into the streets, and then he's left alone and he has nobody to defend him or protect him. I'm just saying, y'all, this ain't sitting right with me. And I'm not going to take this lady's side. I'm going to tell y'all the truth. I'm giving a commentary. This is what we're here to do. We're here to find the truth, and we need to bring everything out. Even if it's making you feel uncomfortable, who cares? This is her actions. So after she asked the brother to leave the home, guys, that made Yasmin the only child living at the residence at that time. So, Rose had her daughter's kids come over. There were other children to come over and probably spend the weekends and stuff like that, and children were around. So, after she started touching them kids, she told her, she got to go on in the basement instead of getting this baby some help. And it already stated that she had behavioral problems, and Rose knew where it stemmed from, her being sexually abused, and it developed into severe emotional and behavioral problems. So Rose Starnes, once again, rest your heart, sweetie. You knew this back in 2006 when you adopted them, and you knew this back in 2001 when you went down there to get them and have them in your care, and then turned around and adopted them. So if you could not take that she had these problems going on because she was sexually being abused, then why take on a challenge like this? This is just my opinion. And why not get this child the professional help she needed at that time? Now, guys, we can take a very good guess as to why. Now, remember, the brother was just 16 years old when she asked this young man to leave the house. He was still a child, still underage, okay? She could have just called the foster care system and placed him in placement, okay? That's just my opinion, okay? And so I remember an interview that the brother did. He started telling how, and this is how the information got out there. He started actually telling about the furniture and how they couldn't sit on her furniture. She had plastic everywhere, and she was just very not kind to them. They couldn't just go in the refrigerator and get what they wanted to eat. And then the brother recanted his story and started saying, oh, she was very nice to us. She was good to us. And this is when his sister came up missing. But the brother had started talking. I remember it when Yasmin first went missing. He started really telling the person who Rose Starnes really was, how she was a Coretta DeVille of their life at that time. Okay. So like I told y'all about Rose Starnes' character, she began to rent out rooms in the building in the house that she owned. So it's a 2-flat building, and there was some space available upstairs, and I guess she converted it into another apartment. However, she invited this man named Jimmy Terrell and his father, honey, to go and live on that second floor above her in her building that she owned. So she was renting this space out to these two men, father and son. Now, Jimmy Terrell was the son, and his father's name was never named, okay? But anyway, the father and Rose Starnes were good friends already. So, his son, who was Jimmy Terrell Smith, moved in that building in 2005. And at that time, Jimmy was on parole from prison. He was serving a sentence for attempted murder. And when he got out and he was still on parole, he was already arrested 6 times. He was always carrying guns and even selling drugs near Mrs. Starnes' apartment building. However, after that, it was stated that he took an interest in Yasmin. Okay? And she even mentioned him twice in her little secret diary. Now let's get back into Mrs. Rose Starnes, the aunt, aka adopted mom. So when this happened with Yasmin, when suddenly she just became missing out of the basement, and there was a lock broke on the outside of the back door, and she was nowhere to be found. Rose Starnes didn't even tell the police that she had Jimmy Smith living in her building, and it didn't happen until 2009. So these were several years after her niece came up missing. She finally decides to tell the police that this murderer was living in her apartment building, okay? Because see, he was arrested for actually raping 5 females, including 2 14-year-old girls, and he allegedly kidnapped them. Smith said he knew what happened to Yasmin. They had the Chicago Tribune to come down there. He said he wanted to talk to them and tell them what happened to Yasmin because he knew what happened to her. But the point I'm trying to make, guys, is that this baby came up missing. And she waited until 2009 to tell the police that this criminal who was on parole was living in her building, and she was renting to him and his father, in which she was good friends with the father. So I knew she had known something about him being arrested or being on parole. There is no way in heck. Okay. So this man, once again, he raped 5 females, including 2 14-year-old girls, and he kidnapped those 2 little 14-year-old girls, he stated. And this is already in this criminal record. Guys, he even admitted that he was responsible for 4 more murders, and he hasn't even been charged with them. This is the kind of people that Rose Starnes had around her niece, okay, in the home, and was punishing her for something that happened to her that she had absolutely no control over. Well, there isn't much information about her mother other than her dying and being addicted to drugs back in Kentucky. There was a lot of things possibly going on in that household as to why she was being sexually abused as a child. They never said anything about the brother being sexually abused, but I can almost guarantee he was being abused as well. It was just him and his sister, and they were in Kentucky with their mother, and then Yasmin was being sexually abused, and this is her oldest brother, and I doubt if nothing happened to him. Something happened. But however, we're speaking about Yasmin because all of a sudden, all of these things that played up to her becoming missing, it's not really stated in most of these videos. So I just wanted to break this down to you guys and give you a timeline. Not that Yasmin was just in the basement and somebody broke in and they took her out of the basement, and it's 14 years later and she's just nowhere to be found. No, it didn't happen like that. You need to explain what was going on in the home, everybody's position, and their character. So I'm telling you guys what was going on in the home, the character of her auntie/adopted mother, the men that she let move into the building, and this career criminal rapist predator, Mr. Jimmy Terrell Smith. I'm just giving you guys what's here. So, in 2014, like I said, Rose couldn't take it anymore. She decided to check up out of here. And Yasmin has never been found, guys. But I wanted to break this story down and give you guys a tidbit more backstory to this story that led up to her disappearance. Now, like I stated, when he moved out of the building, it was allegedly stated that he kept in touch with Yasmin, and he had been seeing her after he left out of the building and no longer lived there. However, I'm not going to buy that because remember I told you guys that Mrs. Rose loved to go on the boat. She was always going out and having fun with her little boyfriend, having such a wonderful time. And it seems that she was doing that same thing when Yasmin came up missing from the home, missing from the basement. The locks were broke on the outside of the back door. So yeah, he said he wouldn't say what happened to Yasmin, but he definitely knows what happened to Yasmin, and because he was responsible for 4 murders that were unsolved, and he was responsible for those murders, he can't say anything because he said I'd be putting my head in a noose. So they even tried to come back to question him at the jailhouse, trying to figure out what happened to Yasmin. Where did she go? One of those meetings included more than a 30-hour interview. So after talking to him, and I guess they got a little bit of information, So they obtained a warrant for a then it was an empty home that he had lived with his on and off girlfriend back in between 2008 2009. They entered that house. It was empty. Once again, they searched it for 90 minutes. It was 8 officers. They moved in and out of frame in the house. And they left with 4 evidence bags. However, guys, no new information has ever came when it came to this young baby, Yasmin Acree, in Chicago on the West Side. Okay, no more information has been uncovered. This story is sad all the way around because I feel in my heart there was a lot of things that Mrs. Rose Starnes could have done to protect Yasmin more, even before she moved these men into the home. And what I find very odd, yes, this man has a record. He has raped several young women and kidnapped 2 young 14-year-old girls, but there was no information or no questioning of his own father. Yes, we don't know anything about the father other than him living there with his career criminal predator son. Okay, so I think that the father should have been looked at as well. They just swept him out of the story. And Rose Starnes knew him as well. His name never came up. They never even pronounced his name to the public. Because, baby, when that social worker came there to check on Yasmin, honey, she said she had no idea that Smith and his father was living there with them criminal records, living in that building owned by her adoptive mother, Rose Starnes. Like I said, y'all, I'm not being a bully. I'm just telling the facts. The caseworker said she didn't even know, honey. So the newspaper even took it upon themselves to read Yasmin's diary. They did interviews with relatives and renters all around in the neighborhood. And it was pages and pages of government records showing that Yasmin was a very fragile child in many ways. She was left unprotected by the adults in her life, including child welfare authorities. Okay, but I blame no one but Rose Marie Starnes. Okay. Guys, I wanted to bring this story. It is a lot deeper. However, I just wanted to give you guys a backdrop on what was going on behind the scenes. So once again, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.